Look, I'm not a lawyer. He's not a lawyer, and he's generally right. This case is going to the Supreme Court. It's a process, obviously, but in the end, the Supreme Court's going to decide either whether to take up the case in total or just to ignore it. But either way, it's the final say in this court process. I mean, look, I just go back to some basic points. Statutory federal law says the elections were supposed to happen yesterday. There's nothing normal about multiple states, let alone one state counting ballots and votes for days afterwards. And frankly, when you have states in the middle of counting, like what was happening in Georgia, happening in Pennsylvania, stop counting, call a timeout, especially when the candidate of the insurgent candidate, in this case, President Trump, is winning against the political establishment in the counties that called the timeout. That's an indication of fraud. You don't need
But
to worry about whether
but
machines were broken.
look, I
They
think there's a
stopped
difference between
counting.
voting and counting, though. That there's a big
When
difference.
you stop counting improperly for no good reason in the middle of an election, that ought to be concerning. That to me is evidence of fraud. And counting ballots after the election necessarily undermines confidence in the integrity of the process. So the question I have is, in Pennsylvania legally, can they be counting ballots that arrive after election day? I think generally counting ballots that even after election day are problematic, but certainly ballots that weren't there in the polls when the polls closed. The idea that they would be counted, in my view, is an abomination unto the law.
Well, and you've called for the DOJ to investigate this. Why are you calling specifically on the DOJ, not another department or by state?
Yeah.
Well, they're supposed to be protecting our civil rights. If your vote is stolen as a result of improper counting and ballots being counted that shouldn't have been counted, illicit votes being counted, that's a civil rights issue. And the Justice Department, nominally run by the president, needs to step up, in my view, and defend the rule of law on ballots. I mean, what now is going on? My playing political analyst here. The president better hope that he maintains his lead in Pennsylvania and is able to pull it out in Arizona.
Right.
I don't see the litigation as currently constructed as saving him.
Well, I could totally. Yeah. See, the thing that was interesting is I don't know why last night, to your point, they stopped counting in Philadelphia, right? Why didn't the campaign have lawyers on the ground waking up judges saying, hey, this needs to continue, impounding voting machines? I think they lost valuable hours last night. I do think there's a difference. I mean, look, the law in each state determines when and how they can count, whether it's, they have to have a postmark in or whatever. But last night, Tom, I think that they lost significant, important time.
Yeah, that was a kind of a window of secrecy, frankly, in Philadelphia. You don't know, were they monitoring what was going on in that downtime? Same thing in Georgia. I don't know what was happening during the time they stopped or weren't counting ballots as they should have. This is really problematic, and of course, all of this was foreseeable, and this was planned. This chaos and uncertainty by the left. When you mail out 100 million ballots and ballot applications to people who haven't asked for them, you're guaranteeing chaos on election day. And the fact that they were only required in certain states to count ballots when they came in, which makes sense in terms of ballot integrity, election integrity, is no excuse for not selecting the president as they were supposed to yesterday. It's my view the president won yesterday. When you look, the states were required to tell us who won yesterday, not today, not tomorrow, not 3 days from now.
Right.
And he was winning yesterday, and that should have been the end of it.
Look, I do think that it depends. I mean, every state has a law that determines whether or not they accept, and the Constitution is clear on that the state said it. I think the question is, did they follow their own state law? And that's the big difference. But, Tom,
I disagree with you briefly here. Federal law is we select our president on election day. States can't override that because they decide to count ballots that come in. Can a state count ballots that come in December?
No, but look, I'm not a lawyer. You're not. I know
I'm not either, but I read the law, and it doesn't make any sense that there's deadlines set up, that we have 50 deadlines in the country as to when our elections take place. No, there's one deadline.
I know what Jenna Ellis from the campaign has made very clear, which is she has told me and told us on the show that the Constitution says that state legislatures in the states set those rules. So all I'm telling you is the Trump campaign has even conceded that fact that the states need to follow. Whether or not they follow their own law, I think, is another story. But Tom, I know you've been extreme.
That is true in Pennsylvania. The law doesn't allow what's going on in Pennsylvania.
All right.
That's a judge-imposed change in the law that allows these counting irregularities that we're opposing now.